Hi, boys and girls. Let's talk about the next group in the animal kingdom. The next group that we're going to talk about, I'm going to flip you around here, is the group called Cnidaria, and then we'll talk about the ctenophores here. Now remember, this group of animals does not have bilateral symmetry. They have what's called radial symmetry. It's the circular kind of symmetry. Okay? So this top group, Cnidaria, I'm going to read to you about them. Cnidarians have stinging tentacles that they use to capture food. The tentacles surround the single opening into their sac-like digestive cavity. Cnidarians have two body forms, the medusa, which is this, and the polyp, which I think is this one. Jellyfish are medusas. They have their tentacles on the bottom and can swim through the water. Polyps, which are like corals, hydras, and sea anemones, are stationary. That means they don't move, with tentacles on the top. So these medusa types, these obviously swim through the water, where the anemone and the hydra are stationary, meaning this is attached to the rock, and this is attached to the rock. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple pictures of some Cnidaria. So let's see what you can see there. The medusa kind and the polyp kind, the kind that attach to the rock and then grow. Okay, again, that's the kind. You've probably seen that in the movie Finding Nemo. Do you remember that one? Sea anemones. Those are Cnidaria because they have stinging cells. They would sting you at the end of it. Why do they have those stinging cells? What good is it? That's how they catch their food. They sting their food and then bring it up. Here he is stinging his food, and then he brings it up into his digestive tract, which is they're basically a big balloon with a stomach. They're just bringing their food right up into their stomach. Okay, the next group that I want to talk to you about are what we call ctenophores. Now these have stinging cells too, but their stinging cells are much smaller. I've actually caught a comb jelly before in my hands, and they actually feel a little sticky when you catch them, and that's the stinging cells trying to catch you and eat you. But I'm so much bigger, obviously they can't catch me. So I'm not afraid of them when I see them in the ocean. Comb jellies have 8 bands of iridescent cilia called comb plates. Now, iridescent means that they sparkle. These run the length of their bodies and move the animals through the water. Comb jellies have transparent bodies, which means you can see through them, that are spherical. That means that they're like a sphere, you know that word, right? Or ovoid, like an oval. Most use sticky, retractable tentacles to trap plankton. I guess that one that I caught thought I was plankton, huh? Some have lobes in front of their mouths and can envelop prey nearly as large as themselves. Now, if I were holding a comb jelly, it would be as big as my fingernail. Pretty small. I'll show you some cool pictures of some comb jellies. Now, obviously, these pictures are magnified, but when it talks about the iridescent, it's talking about those beautiful sparkles. Okay. Actually, this one is not a comb jelly. This is a medusa jellyfish like we were talking about before, but it's on the page, so I want to show it to you. Oops, wrong way. Here's another one. Cool, huh? All right, so I'm going to read to you about each one. Hydras live in fresh water. They are usually less than 3 centimeters, really, really tiny. They eat protozoa, water fleas, and other tiny animals. They can reproduce by budding. The bud breaks off when it is large enough to live on its own. That's called a hydra. The little magnifying glass is there to show you that you really wouldn't see this unless you were looking under a microscope. Anemones. These are the ones we saw in the picture. Frilled sea anemones live just below low tide, attached to rocks. They look like flowers because of their many tentacles. Each tentacle has stinging cells that shoot out a barbed thread. The threads capture food and repel predators. Now that's the one that we saw that looked like. Right? Cool. And then jellyfish. You probably know a little bit about jellyfish. Jellyfish are bell-shaped. The bell has muscles that squeeze the water in and out to propel, that means to move forward, the jellyfish. Their bodies are almost all water, and they cannot survive for long out of the sea. Jellyfish. Now, we're going to talk about the comb jellies, the ctenophores. These are sea gooseberries. The sea gooseberry lives in cold oceans and floats with the current. It uses its 2 trailing tentacles to capture fish eggs and larvae and small crustaceans. Its sticky tentacles can stretch to 20 times its own length, then shorten to bring the food back up to its mouth. So it goes out and catches its food with its sticky tentacles and then brings it back in. And then my favorite, the comb jellies. Lobed comb jellies swim mouth first, rowed along by their 8 band of tiny cilia. They have no tentacles, but they hold their prey in their central cavity with hooks. They seal their lobes closed to swim and open them to eat. They often eat other comb jellies, so they eat each other. So when these are swimming, if you ever saw these in a video, these little, actually look it up online, they're beautiful. Look up comb jelly swimming. These little things along the side go, and they flicker, and these are see-through, almost like glass, but then they sparkle. So beautiful. God loves to make beautiful things, doesn't he? And there's so many of them under the sea. So the group we talked about today have radial symmetry. We talked about the Cnidaria, the stinging cells, and we talked about the comb jellies, which are they're called the ctenophores. Those 2 groups. So the next groups that we'll come and talk about are, we think of them as icky, but scientists think they're interesting. Flatworms, roundworms, and my favorites, the rotifers. That's what we'll do next. Okay, boys and girls, talk to you soon. We just reviewed Animal Kingdom. Bye-bye.